Here's a Lewiston-Clarkston Valley trivia question for you. Who is the only sitting president to visit this community? The answer is William Howard Taft. Hi, I'm Managing Editor Matt Baney, and this is episode number 56 of the Lewiston Tribune Podcast. Today I'm going to tell you about Big Bill's visit to Lewiston. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss an episode. Nowadays, Taft is perhaps best remembered as the heaviest president, tipping the scales at well over 300 pounds. But he also enjoyed an accomplished career. He's the only person to serve as both president and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. As president, he was the hand-picked successor to the great Theodore Roosevelt, and later was a rival to Roosevelt when TR decided to run for president again in 1912. Taft's trip to Lewiston came on October 7th, 1911, 114 years ago this week. Here's the story of Taft's stop in Lewiston, which lasted just an hour but is still celebrated today. Taft was on a 46-day cross-country tour when his train rolled into Lewiston on October 7th, and the whole town, actually the whole region, turned out. 15,000 to 18,000 people packed into the city. That's more than double the town's population at the time. People came in wagons, buggies, and early automobiles, all just to catch a glimpse of the president. Lewiston even had a little fun with its security detail that day. Chief of Police handpicked a lineup of what he proudly called his Taft-sized officers, men who could rival the president in both weight and enthusiasm. The chief himself led the group, along with a local man named Seth Jones, who reportedly tipped the scales at nearly 365 pounds. The Tribune story said they were Taft policemen in every sense, big in size, big in spirit, and firmly loyal to the president. When Taft stepped off his train at the Lewiston station, the mayor of the town and a crowd of local officials were waiting. Taft climbed into a car and made his way down Main Street, waving to cheering crowds packed along both sides of the road. By the time he reached the park that is now known as Pioneer Park, 1,000 school children were lined up waving flags and singing America. Veterans in faded uniforms stood at attention, and the whole scene was bathed in warm autumn sunshine, a perfect fall day. Taft climbed onto a decorated platform in the park's bandshell and, with his trademark grin, thanked everyone for the welcome. He told the crowd how honored he felt to be there, and even joked about how handsome the women of Lewiston were, which got plenty of laughs. It wasn't a fiery political speech. It was more like a friendly chat. When he wrapped up, he said, "Well, goodbye all," and the crowd yelled right back, "Goodbye, Bill," and "Hello, Bill," like they were sending off an old friend. Before leaving, he was handed a bouquet of local flowers and a basket of the valley's famous fruit. One little girl, Nell Barnett, gave him flowers and proudly told him they were grown outdoors. Taft cracked one of his biggest smiles at that. Then, just like that, he was gone, back in his car and waving to the crowd as he returned to the train depot. Taft then traveled to Moscow, where he was greeted by a crowd of 4,000. He spoke on antitrust rulings, fair business practices, and monetary reform, before planting a tree on the University of Idaho campus beside one Teddy Roosevelt had planted earlier that same year. Interestingly, Taft and Roosevelt had become political rivals at that point. All other presidential visits to the area came before or after each man served as president. As mentioned before, Teddy Roosevelt spent the night at Moscow in April of 1911 and spoke to a crowd of 8,000. At the time, he was campaigning for president again as a rival of Taft. John F. Kennedy stopped in Pullman and Lewiston in 1960, tackling doubts about his Catholic faith and blasting the Eisenhower years as stagnant. Then, just months later, he became the nation's 35th president. Ronald Reagan fired up Idaho Republicans in 1976 during a stop at Moscow with promises to shrink the government and give power back to the people. Joe Biden visited Lewis-Clark State College in 1986, hinting at a future White House run, and decades later, he made good on it, becoming America's 46th president. That's all for this edition of the Lewiston Tribune Podcast. We'll be back again next week with another new episode. Until then, have a great day.